Hi everyone, thank you so much for clicking to watch this video. This is Get Ready and Get Weird with Marcella. I'm Marcella, so glad that you're here. We are here today to talk about elephants. Elephants was a suggestion by my friends Alyssa and Avery in Houston, Texas. I'm so glad that you two sent this suggestion in via your mom. I am very happy to cover it. I'm also happy that you're here watching. We will cover a little bit about the difference between Asian and African elephants. We will talk about what is threatening their species as a whole. We'll talk about their lifespan, their social structure. We'll cover a little bit about what they eat, as well as a couple of fun facts, which is maybe the most important part about the video. I'll let you decide that. Overall, I'm so glad that you're here. I have really appreciated making these videos. It's been just over a month of videos and I've been having a great time, so I hope you have too. Today's makeup look is also loosely inspired by elephants. I mixed some black and a lighter color to make a grayish colored eyeshadow, and then I also used pink because the Asian elephants have a bit of pink on them as well. With that being said, I really am so glad that you're here, and I hope that you enjoy this conversation about elephants. Hello everyone, I am here with my clean face, ready to talk to you about elephants. As I mentioned, elephants are a suggestion from my friends Allie and Avery in Houston, Texas. I am so excited to finally be covering your suggestion. They suggested both elephants and sea turtles, so we'll have to also do an episode about sea turtles in the future. So let's get started talking about elephants. There's actually two specific kinds of elephants, and those two kinds are Asian and African elephants. We'll start with Asian elephants. I might regret this hair situation. Asian elephants are the smaller of the two. They also have smaller ears. And Asian elephants have 3 subspecies, maybe 4, but they're still debating about the 4th one. There's Indian, Sumatran, and Sri Lankan. So those are the 3 subspecies of the Asian elephants. Of the 3, Sri Lankan is the darkest and the largest. Sumatran is the smallest of those 3. But like I mentioned, they do sometimes argue that there's a 4th subspecies, and that is the Borneo pygmy, and that elephant is smaller. It has a rounder baby looking face, and it is the least aggressive. Asian elephants can range from brown to dark gray, and they sometimes will have pink spots. To me, they kind of look like they have freckles. Like they have a pink spot with freckles on it, on their foreheads and their ears. So if you see elephants with freckles, that's what I think they look like, at least. They are probably the Asian elephants. These elephants, like I mentioned, are smaller than their African relatives. They are about 3 meters tall, 3 meters high, but they only weigh about 5 tons. The largest ones only weigh about 5 tons. Asian elephants normally will reach their full size at around 17 years of age. I always find the rate of maturation in different animals interesting. I'm intrigued by it. I like to know, when are they as big as they'll get? When are they still considered juveniles? When are they finally considered adults? So they reach their full size, their full weight and height at around 17 years of age. Asian elephants do. Another interesting difference between Asian and African elephants is on the tips of their trunks. Both of them have a finger-like appendage, but Asian elephants only have 1, whereas their African relatives have 2, one on the top and one on the bottom. Asian elephants only have the one on the top of their trunk. They use these to feel around as well as like grab things and manipulate things, I guess. So moving on to the African elephants, their relatives, the second kind of elephant that we're going to talk about These elephants are larger. They are about 6 tons, still usually around 3 meters high. Buzzy.
Buzzy. Do you have anything to add about elephants to this video? Nothing? Okay. I love you.
African elephants are sometimes categorized into savanna and forest types, but there's still debate in the scientific community as to whether there's enough differences between those two types to be considered separate species altogether. So there are genetic differences, there are some behavioral differences, but again, they have not officially been separated into different species. But there's differences, there's a few differences, so maybe one of these days. I think for my eye look, I'm gonna try to find some grays, maybe blues, but I was thinking grays and pink colors. And I have a date later, a little FaceTime date, so nothing too risky living in the pandemic. So maybe I'll wear this makeup for it. We'll see what we can work with. I don't have a ton of grays. Mostly I have black and then kind of neutral browns. So doing these videos, I've realized what colors I don't have, but I also have realized in my real life what colors I use, which is mostly like browns and neutrals. So we'll see what we can do. We're gonna make it happen. All right, the African elephant is the largest land mammal on Earth. I did forget to mention when I was talking about the Asian elephant that the Asian elephant is the largest land mammal on the Asian continent. So it is a little bit smaller than the African elephant, but still humongous. I mentioned that the Asian elephant has smaller ears of the two, and the African elephant, of course, by eliminating, we can tell that they must have the larger ears. Their ears are also interesting because they are by chance shaped kind of like the continent of Africa, which is a funny coincidence. Of course, they don't know what shape of land they live on, but it is a fun way to try to remember to tell them apart from each other. Males of the African elephant, they reach their full size not until 35 to 40 years old. So that's a long time to be growing to your full grown size, if you ask me. I've made a gray. I mixed some colors together and made a gray. Cool. Pretty. Let's see if we can add some pinks in there. All right, so I mentioned that the Asian elephants have the 1 finger and then African elephants have the 2 fingers on the end of their trunk. They have one on the bottom part and one on the top part. And these finger-like appendages allow them to pick things up, grab things, manipulate things in a way that I personally wouldn't have expected from just having a trunk, you know, flopping around and, you know, kind of picking stuff up and sucking water up and all that. But they actually can pick small items up, feel it, move it around, manipulate it. They have tons of muscles in their trunks. I had no idea that there were finger-like appendages on the tips of their trunk. Something else that I found out about elephants in my research, African elephants are actually considered a keystone species in their habitat. And what that means is that they change the environment that they live in a very important way for the other animals that they share their habitat with. For example, when they're going through a drought or a dry spell, or there's a dry riverbed in the African elephant's habitat, they will use their tusks to dig at dry riverbeds to find water, and then that will create a watering hole for lots of species, lots of animals, not just elephants, you know, zebras, gazelles, all those different species will also use those watering holes. I'll talk about this a little bit more when we talk about the fact that what threatens these animals and their populations. But without elephants, if elephants went extinct, it wouldn't just be like, oh, this is sad because we'll never see an elephant in the wild again. It could impact entire other groups of animals and really change the entire ecosystem. We all play a part of the ecosystems that we live in. We all, as animals, impact the species and living things around us. And as a keystone species, we're able to see that in African elephants in a big way. So they might dig and create watering holes for other animals. They also can clear, because they eat all day. They're big eaters, big, and they eat a lot to maintain that body. But they might clear out small saplings or trees that they're eating, and that helps leave open savanna for zebras and other animals that need open grazing areas. So, keystone species, better take care of them. Another way that elephants impact their habitat is through their poop. Actually, their dung contains a ton of seeds because as herbivores, they're constantly eating plants and seeds and like pods off of different plants. And so similar to the way that birds distribute seeds through their dung, well, bird poop, bird defecation. Elephants' dung contains tons of seeds, so as they walk and spread their poop around, they're actually impacting their environment. Another term besides keystone species that is used to describe elephants is ecosystem engineers, and they really are shaping their ecosystem just by existing in it. So their poop allows different plants to spread across their ecosystem. Their dung also provides a great habitat for dung beetles to live in. So they really do support a major part, they serve a major role in their ecosystem and impact many other species because of it. So a sad truth about elephants is that their numbers have been dwindling. At the beginning of the 20th century, there were likely around 100,000 or more Asian elephants in the wild. And that number, just with Asian elephants, has dwindled by more than 50%. And this is due to a few things. In Asia specifically, some elephants are captured for tourism, so captured for captivity and tourism. A bigger threat even than that though is the poaching, the ivory trade. Poachers and hunters will kill the elephants to take their tusks for ivory. Ivory was used to make piano keys, to make billiard balls, so pool table balls for your pool table. And yes, thankfully, the ivory trade has been made illegal. So it is now, there are laws in place on the live ivory trade, but it still happens. And the numbers have dwindled so incredibly that it's hard for them to make it come back even now. As with most animals, as the human population grows and encroaches on their habitat, their numbers dwindle. It's hard for, we as humans don't really share habitat space very well with any wild animals, just the nature of us. And so in Asia, that's been a big problem, not problem, but it has impacted elephants' habitats. When population numbers rise, human population rises, it encroaches on more of their natural habitat. So that's been a big issue for the Asian elephants specifically, is the human population rising. And again, like I mentioned, the poaching situation is probably the biggest threat to elephants, especially in the African elephants. That is the species that is hunted more, poached more for their tusks. And an interesting thing is that these elephants are actually beginning to evolve to be tuskless. And while that's interesting and kind of cool, fun fact to know, scientists don't know the impact that becoming tuskless will have on the species. I mentioned that African elephants will use their tusks to dig watering holes for other animals, and if they're evolved to be tuskless, what are they gonna do? Use their cute little feet? Maybe, hopefully. Hopefully they'd figure something out. But that's one thing that, yeah, we are as mammals and animals very adaptable, and evolution helps keep species alive, but at what risk? When we lose a feature, when we adapt a feature out of us, when we adapt to not be as desirable to the poachers and lose our tusks, what does that do to the future of the species? It's an interesting thing to consider. There are, with all these negative and sad things, there are good conservation efforts in place. Many conservation efforts. So a few things that conservation efforts have done is for farmers. So elephants eat all day, and if they run into a farmer's crop, they can devastate an entire year of crops in one night. And so the farmer wakes up and is rightfully angry. That's his livelihood. That's their livelihood. So some conservation efforts are working to help farmers protect their crops in the first place, put in safety measures that don't allow, keep elephants off of their property. But then if the elephants do still devastate their crops, they may be able to financially help the farmer so that the farmer is not immediately like, let's go kill all the elephants, because that's just, for the whole earth, probably not the best option to kill all the elephants. But I can absolutely empathize with the farmer who's like, well, this evil animal just ate all my crops, so I want to kill it. Of course, if we look at the whole situation, we probably shouldn't kill the elephants. But if you think about that farmer's perspective, he's like, get these, they're pests. They're just pests. So conservation efforts in that situation is to monetarily help the farmer if the elephants get to their crops, and then also to protect the crops, to somehow build an infrastructure that the elephants can't get past. They're pretty smart. Elephants are pretty smart, so they can get past fences and stuff. So that's one conservation effort, is to help farmers and save their crops. Another conservation effort is that the ivory trade is illegal. So, I mean, you can't legally trade it, which again, people do illegal things. That's not a secret. But when there are laws in place, it helps to deter it and maybe slow it down because you can get in trouble for it. Conservationists also protect land, so protect elephants' habitat from humans encroaching on it, living on it, hunting on it, building towns and cities in their habitats. So protecting land, helping farmers, and making the trade of ivory illegal have all been things that conservationists have tried. Now that we've talked about them being a vulnerable species, let's talk a little bit about some other cool facts about elephants. So something I always find intriguing is how's their social structure? Elephants actually have a matriarchal setup. So the women are kind of in charge. They have a woman leader, is basically, boil it down, there is a woman in charge of the herd. And so the herd, a herd of elephants, is normally just women, adult women, and their calves, their babies. And then males actually normally roam alone or form smaller groups of just males. So the women roam around together in a herd. The females, a woman elephant. The female elephants are actually called cows, and the oldest and biggest cow is the matriarch. So she is the head cow in charge. And then, like I said, the male elephants might form a smaller group, but they usually will roam alone. And the male elephants are called foals. So the social structure is matriarchal, like I said before I had to do some doctoring of this eyeshadow. An elephant's life cycle is also interesting. I mentioned when I was talking about the difference between Asian and African elephants, the time that it takes for them to reach their full grown size. So females can give birth every 2.5 to 4 years. They can have another baby, and their pregnancies last 22 months, just around there. And that's the longest in any mammal. That's the longest pregnancy gestation period for any mammal. This long period that it takes for elephants to reproduce, so the long gestation cycle, the length between each baby, has contributed to the slow rate of helping to regenerate the population of elephants in the wild. Because sure, even if we completely stopped poaching elephants, that would be great. We should totally do that. But they can't repopulate, they can't reproduce at a rate fast enough to make up for the numbers that have dwindled. When a baby is born, they are about 200 pounds and stand at about 3 feet tall, so a yardstick tall, pretty tall. And then the baby stays with their mom for about 4 years, and then the boys will take off on their own, maybe meet up with a couple other male elephants and wander with them. And the girls will become part of the female herd. We have a little tiny drop of mascara. I need to get it off of my face. I hate when this happens. I know. Uh-oh. Gosh dang it, look what I did to myself. I took one drop off and put like 4 more drips on. Help me. I'm gonna go get a Q-tip, I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back. Okay, overall better, but today's eye makeup look. Don't look too close, I say as I get as close as I can to the camera. All right, so I mentioned briefly earlier that these animals, these elephants, eat all day. They barely sleep so that they are able to eat enough to maintain their huge, huge bodies. They eat up to 300 pounds of food a day. They like bark, fruit, grass, all types of vegetation. They're herbivores. I also mentioned that they will take a farmer's crops. This can cause conflict with humans, and that really sucks because it causes harm to the elephant as an animal, as a species, and then it also causes the farmers a lot of strife, and we don't want that either. Something else I found out that I thought was so interesting is that the tusks are actually teeth. So the tusks are actually oversized teeth in the elephant's mouth. I always thought of them more like a goat's horns or a Texas Longhorn's horns, but they are really teeth similar to like a boar's tusks, like a wild boar or a pig's tusks. Those are just long teeth, and it's the same way for elephants. They also might use their tusks to battle each other for a mate. A few other fun facts about elephants is that they use mud and dirt as a means to protect themselves from the sun, so they'll cover their bodies with mud and dirt. That also helps them to stay tick-free and bug-free, so they're able to keep themselves clean using mud and dirt, similar to the way that pigs use dirt to protect themselves from the sun. So like sunscreen. Wear your sunscreen, it's important. They also do communicate with each other, and one way that they do this is with low frequency rumbles that humans can't even hear. And it is hypothesized that elephants detect these rumbles, these communications with their bones, which I find totally fascinating. And last but not least, elephants can recognize themselves in a mirror. And that is something that not many other animals that we know of, we don't know everything, not many other animals that we know of can do. It's a sign of intelligence. So that is all I have for you today about elephants. I'm so glad that you clicked to watch this video. We talked about the difference between Asian and African elephants. We talked about some of the things that are threatening their species. We talked about their life cycle, their diet, some fun facts, as well as the way that their social structure is set up. I hope that you learned something or refreshed your memory about something. Thank you to Alyssa and Avery in Houston, Texas for suggesting that I cover elephants. It was a very fun, interesting topic to cover for this channel, and I really appreciate your suggestions. I also appreciate that you take the time to watch. With that being said, thank you again for being here. Make sure you like, make sure you subscribe, make sure you share these videos with any friends or family that you think would enjoy them. And last but not least, as always, remember, it's so, so, so important that you stay weird.